Welcome to Learn as You Grow, the podcast where we grow every day in every way, sharing gardening tips, ideas, and inspiration to help you cultivate your best garden and self. Let's talk about the steps for planning your garden year. We're going to talk about dreaming, planning, and go time. Why do you want to garden? I want you to actually think and answer that and even write it down. Why do you want to garden? Is it to market garden, to grow enough food to sell? Or is it to grow enough food just for you to eat and your family? Is it to start a permaculture garden, which is slower the first few years, unless you incorporate it into a grocery row style garden like David the Good? But then, like the long term game, you have food pumping out without you doing anything in those perennials. You want to just grow food for yourself, your nutrition, your mind, and your body? Do you like just being outside and you want an excuse? Do you just enjoy gardening as a whole? Like, what is your actual why? Then we need to gather your inspiration, your seed catalogs. Most of them are free. Look at pictures from your last growing season. Hit up YouTube and check out videos. Read some good books like Minimalist Gardening by David the Good, Grow or Die by David the Good. Like I said, he has the Grocery Row Gardens. That's also a book that he wrote, and there's videos on YouTube. Then the planning. Where are you actually growing? Is it in the ground? Is it containers? Start small. You need to plan out and mark out on the land where is the sun coming in at, where you have 8 hours. That's your prime real estate zone for your hot weather, warm growing crops. Figure out where is 6 hours of sun exposure and then 4 hours. So there's a shady part because some things, our cool crops, can handle the shade. If all you have is full sun, you can use tall crops to make a shaded area for the cool crops. Understand where the water flows on your property. We kind of need water. Do you need to capture water or do you have a water source already? You can use buckets. You don't have to have a $80 rain barrel. Understand the rules and regulations for your county and city. You need a watering can, a hose, and a wand. There's basic tools. We did a live stream on Shawnee Grows with top 12 garden tools and a list for a basic gardener and ones that have large gardens. Check it out on my YouTube channel. How are you going to grow? The beds, the in-ground, the containers, grow bags? Are your grow bags hemp or wool or burlap or plastic? Are you going to use a 4x4 bed, an 8x4 bed? If you're growing in the ground, are you using 30-inch rows? A square foot garden? Check out my website, shawneegrows.com, for your free square foot gardening guide, link in the description. Do you need to make a new bed? What wildlife is in your area? Deer, rodents, birds, insects, feral cats? Do you need some netting or fencing? Then there's your soil, the most important piece to this whole picture. Now you can get testing kits from your local extension office or your seed and feed co-op store. They sell testing kits. But we need to do some amending. We need to aerate the soil. We need to add homemade kitchen scrap compost. Your worm castings. How many of you have a worm farm for vermiculture? Maybe you just need some organic potting soil or raised bed soil mix. You just want to buy a bag down at the store. Mushroom compost, leaf mold. Maybe you have cold manure, manure that doesn't burn the plants, used directly already from the animal with the rabbit, goat, sheep. Get your biochar in there. Now, some recipes for potting soil is a blend of peat moss or coconut coir, your compost, and then your perlite or vermiculite. Then you can add a food in there from Down to Earth or Dr. Earth or Espoma, some kind of all-purpose starter mix, 333, your NPK. We need to have a proper soil food web. Now that's something that I've showed visuals of on my channel, and we can have a whole podcast episode talking about the soil food web, the different layers, the rhizophagy, the interaction between the root and the microorganisms, and the communication of a healthy immune system of a plant. Watch your land. If you're on new land, you should not be growing in the ground for 1 year. You can do containers, you can move containers around, that's fine. But you need to observe what's sloped, what's uneven, where are the inclines and ditches, where does it flood, where does water naturally flow through the property. You need to observe all these things. Maybe there is a deer trail and you were going to put an orchard there, and that's not going to work anymore. Figuring out your frost dates and zones. So not everybody has a frost date, but if you do, you can go to your search engine and you go my local frost date, and they're going to ask you for your zip code. There's different maps for Canada, there's maps for the United States. If you're in a Mediterranean or tropical or oceanic climate, they go by like rainfall seasons and temperature. You know, when is it too hot and too rainy? You can't grow during those times. Contact somebody local. They're going to have all these answers for you. So the Farmer's Almanac has the frost date guide. My first frost is October 4th, and my last frost is May 3rd. Now, those aren't hard and fast rules. That's a ballpark of average of the last however many years. Average, I have 153 days of frost-free growing time. Now, there are crops that can be in the ground during a frost. That's something you learn as you grow, right? My zone used to be 4B, but the USDA changed it to 5A. Now, zones matter for perennials because they're going to survive through the lowest, coldest temperature. That's why you have a specific zone. They don't really matter with annuals. Annuals are going to die anyways. Now we get to talk about the crops, the fun part, right? I want you to list the crop, but then have a purpose for it, okay? So like carrots for juicing and storing. That's 2 different varieties. That's 2 different carrots you're planting. Cucumbers for pickles, cucumbers for slicing, and cucumbers for juicing. That's 3 different plant varieties right there with the purpose. Tomatoes for slicing or sauce. Get your seeds from a local co-op. Check out a free seed library. Go to a garden friend neighbor. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on seed hauls your first time or any time. There's seeds in your pantry that you don't know about, and we're going to talk about that in a future podcast, so make sure you follow us for that. Then, are we direct sowing only, or are you going to try and start seeds indoors? Now, for first-time growers, I encourage you to just only plant direct sow seeds, and if you're going to need to have a starter plant, just go to your local nursery. Yes, there's less variety. Yes, it costs more money than a seed packet, but we want success and satisfaction here. We talked about what do you grow as a beginner gardener on my YouTube channel in a live stream. Check it out. Create a plan. So the plant name and how many plants do you want to grow? You're going to plant more than this number. There's this funny saying where you plant 1 for the mouse, 1 for the crow, 1 that dies, and 1 that grows. Now that sounds like it's saying plant 4 and expect 1. Is that always the case? No. But stuff does happen. Things get ate, things get destroyed. Some kid might step on something or pull something out. It's good to have backups. What kind of spacing are you going with? Are you going with what the seed packet says? Are you growing in rows? Are you companion planting? Are you doing square foot gardening? Check out my free square foot gardening guide on my website, shawneegrows.com. If you don't know when you're supposed to be putting seeds outside, Seed Time is a wonderful tool. Check it out. Or connect with a local garden club and a local gardener. You can even go on Facebook and look up your state name and gardening clubs or gardening groups. And somebody in there is going to have a planting schedule that works for them because they've been growing for 10 years. And you can just copy what they did and try it out for your little microclimate. Understand that you kind of need to have companion plants. Now, this is an entirely different conversation. I will do a separate episode on companion plants, but know that there's nitrogen fixers, clover, beans, peas, fava beans, lupins, legumes, peanuts have nitrogen nodules on the ends of their roots. We leave those roots in the soil. We just clip the plant at the top when we're done, but leave the roots in there and it feeds that soil food web. We need plants that attract beneficial insects like the basil and the sunflowers and cilantro, dill, parsley, yarrow, bee balm, chamomile, and fennel. We want beneficial insects. They are predators and are pollinators to help take out pests and to help move pollen so we have fruits and vegetables, right? There are plants that you can plant to trick pests, like marigolds, calendula, and nasturtium, mint, thyme, and chives. Cover crops are an entirely different conversation. Those are for your off season when you're not growing food. Jesse Frost, No Till Gardeners, has a wonderful book and a wonderful podcast and a wonderful YouTube channel that really talks about cover crops and understanding what you need to do and what plan you need to have before you plant that seed. It's all about diversity in the soil. Maybe you just want a cool crop space and you want a companion plant. So we're going to sort by size. You have your large growing things. So let's say cabbage and peas are going to go in the center of whatever space it is, whether it's a raised bed, something above ground, some kind of container, or directly in the ground or a mounded bed. The large plant goes in the center. And in this example, we're doing cabbage and then peas. There are peas that are considered dwarf and they don't need a trellis. Otherwise, you're going to need a trellis system. Then we have medium. Let's pop in some celery starts. Direct sow some cilantro, kale, Swiss chard. Fill that around the large. Then your small category. Direct sow radish seed, lettuce seed. Kind of around the medium plants and in the corners. And last, we have this outer edge space, and we're going to jam pack that with herbs and flowers. Now, there are some don'ts with companion planting. Just to touch on them, we try not to grow nightshades together. Nightshades, potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. There's a whole list. We can discuss that more when we do our companion planting podcast. Crop rotation is something we hear about a lot. And how I feel about it is I'm doing polyculture. So I'm doing many plant families in one space that are all helping feed the soil food web. I'm not monocropping where you're just growing a legume in one space. You're just growing a leafy crop in one space. You're just growing a fruiting crop in one space. That's when you hear the word crop rotation. It's having one type of family in one space for 1 year. So on year 2, you would plant a new family. I don't garden that way. I like to mix everything together. Okay, so let's say you're stuck on ideas. There's themed gardens. So with a theme, it gives you a plant list. There's pizza garden, salsa garden, a coloring dye garden, stir fry garden, tea garden, kimchi garden, herb garden, a salad garden. If you want to grow a salad garden, I have a printable PDF, downloadable instructional guide on my website, shawneegrows.com. A fragrance garden, a cocktail garden. If you understand the purpose of how you're going to use something, it just helps the plan come to life, right? Organize it and lay it out. Get it out of your brain onto paper or on a computer. Sort seeds by what month they get planted. Write it on a wall calendar. How many of you go to a bank or a hardware store and they're giving out free calendars? Scoop one up and use it as your planting guide. Draw a map on paper with a ruler. If you understand how to do that on a computer, do it on a computer. You can use web-based services. Like I said, seedtime.us is one. Epic Gardening has their own. The Almanac has their own. You can think about what can be planted when a crop is harvested. That's called a succession planting. So what would happen is, let's say your radish is coming out after 30 days. What can you plant there? Well, you can plant radish again. You can plant lettuce. You can plant a green onion, bunching onion. Or the other way around succession planting is, let's say in the carrot example, I have a carrot that's going to be mature in 65 days, one in 85 days, and one in 95 days. You plant all the seeds at the same time in their own sections, but they don't mature at the same time. So you're getting a weekly harvest of a mature plant. When you're thinking about putting those seeds in the ground, I really encourage you to space it out. Like every weekend, every 2 weeks, put some seeds in. Now, a lot of people are weekend warriors. They kind of go as soon as it's like June 1st here for Minnesota. They have everything in the ground, and that's all that's going to be in the ground, and then they're done planting. And I like to approach it where every 2 weeks there's something to plant up until a certain month. In July, we're planting for the fall garden. So by August, all our seeds need to be in. Keep things close to the house that you're going to harvest more frequently. Then it's going to be go time. Prepare the soil when the soil temp is 55 degrees Fahrenheit for your cold crops. And wait until 65 degrees Fahrenheit for warm crops. Warm crops are your tomatoes, your peppers, things like cucumbers, things that are going to die if a frost touches them. If you've got a cover crop in the bed, you're going to terminate it at this point. You're going to rake and form the space. Do you need to add infrastructure? Arches, T-posts, cattle panels, cages, ropes, and wooden stakes. Get your garden journal ready. Your planting dates, your seed names. Leave a space for notes. Weigh your harvest for fun to see how much you can grow. Make notes on the flavor and the timing of everything. Remember, do not plant too early. Just watch the soil temps. You can use a thermometer in the ground and it'll tell you the temperature of the soil because it's different than air temperature. Look at the weather forecast more than that date I said, that last frost date. That can be wrong. You could look at the weather forecast and it says, well, a week after that, we're going to dip below 32. So, warning, you should probably just wait to plant your garden, right? To see my seed hauls and my specific layouts for what I'm growing in Zone 5A for Minnesota, check out my YouTube channel, Shawnee Grows. Continue to learn is something that we cannot forget. Explore mulch, homemade fertilizers, chop and drop methods, pathway soil banks. Have you heard of those? Enjoy the harvest. Eat fresh, but preserve the leftovers. If you want to grow enough food to get you through the winter, check out my live stream called Surviving the Hunger Gap over on YouTube. I gave crop lists, storage tips to help you with ideas of what to grow this year to eat over the wintertime. And enjoy your garden space. You need to sit with your garden. You breathe. Listen. Don't forget to follow Learn As You Grow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. Leave a review, share it with a fellow gardener, and don't forget to check out my YouTube channel and my website, Shawnee Grows. Until next time, grow every day in every way.